So, what is school really for? I mean, what's its true purpose? Is it all about bringing us together, creating one big unified society? Or does it actually end up reinforcing the divisions that are already there? Today, we're going to dig into that deep connection between education and society, and we'll do it by looking through the lens of two major social theories. Let's get started.
This right here, this is the central question we're tackling. I mean, you look at these images and you can see it, right? School can be this amazing place of opportunity and connection, or it can feel like a real struggle. Is its main job to bring society together, or does it end up just magnifying the divides in wealth and opportunity that already exist? To even begin to answer that, we can turn to some really powerful frameworks from sociology.
All right, let's start with our first lens. This one sees education as a major force for good, a way to build harmony and stability in society. We call this the consensus view. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Consensus theory, which is really championed by the sociologist Émile Durkheim, basically sees society as a kind of living organism. And for that organism to stay healthy and stable, all its different parts, family, government, and of course education, they all have to work together smoothly. And what's the glue holding it all together? A set of shared values and beliefs.
This is such a great way to think about it. Imagine society as a football team. Education is the coach. It's the coach's job to teach every player the rules of the game, their specific position, and how to work together. The goal isn't just about one person scoring, it's about the entire team succeeding and staying strong.
So this theory really rests on three core ideas. First, that all those parts of society depend on each other. Second, that we get a stable society through cooperation and agreement, not by force. And third, and this is the big one for us, that education is the main way we pass on what Durkheim called the collective conscience.
And here's that key term. The collective conscience isn't about what you or I think as individuals. It's that bigger, shared moral compass of a society. It's that gut feeling we all share about what's right and wrong, the common attitudes that really bind us together. And according to Durkheim, schools are absolutely essential for making sure each new generation gets it.
So how does a school actually do all this? Well, according to the theory, it has four critical jobs. First, it socializes kids, teaching them discipline, how to cooperate, how to respect authority. It also transmits our culture, everything from our history to our language. It provides a moral education, teaching things like fairness and responsibility. And finally, it gets students ready for their future jobs, making sure the team has all the skilled players it's going to need. Okay, so just to recap this first lens, its big strength is that it really helps explain how societies stay orderly and unified. It puts a lot of value on shared morals and working together. The major limitation, though, is that it tends to kind of gloss over the cracks in the system. It doesn't have a great answer for issues of inequality or the fact that those shared values might actually benefit some groups way more than others.
Now, let's switch gears completely and look through our second lens. If the consensus view was all about harmony, this next one, conflict theory, is all about the struggle. It sees education not as a unifier, but as a force that can actually divide us. This perspective, which has its roots in the work of Karl Marx, sees society less like a cooperative team and more like an arena where there's constant competition. Different social classes are basically in a never-ending struggle for resources and power. And in this view, education is not some neutral playground. It's a tool used by the most powerful class to keep their advantage and pass inequality down through the generations.
This analogy just hits the nail on the head. Imagine starting a game, but the other team is already up by 20 points before the clock even starts. That's the reality for a lot of people in society. Conflict theory says that the education system, through things like unequal school funding, can basically give some students those extra points right from the get-go.
So from this angle, the school's role looks totally different. Let's look at four key ideas here. First, social reproduction, which is just the fancy term for how class inequality gets passed down. Second, something called the hidden curriculum, which we'll get to in a sec, that teaches obedience and conformity. Third is credentialism, the idea that degrees and diplomas are used as barriers, as gatekeepers to good jobs. And finally, its economic function is to sort students and prepare them for their specific roles in the labor market.
Let's really focus on this term for a second because it's so important. The hidden curriculum is all the stuff you learn in school that's not in the official textbook. It's learning to show up on time, to follow directions with asking why, to accept that someone else is in charge. Conflict theorists argue that these unstated lessons are basically training working-class students to be obedient employees, which keeps the existing power structure in place.
So, to sum up this second perspective, its greatest strength is that it shines a really bright light on injustice. It forces us to look at how systems can be unfair, and it pushes us to think critically about how to fix them. On the other hand, its limitation is that it can sometimes focus so much on conflict that it overlooks all the times people do cooperate, and it might underestimate the real power of education to help some people achieve social mobility.
Okay, so we've just looked through two very, very different lenses. One sees a world of stability, and the other sees a world of struggle. So now, let's put them right next to each other and do a direct comparison.
This table just lays it all out so clearly. With consensus theory, society is stable and cooperative. With conflict theory, it's unequal and full of conflict. For consensus, the purpose of education is unity. For conflict, it's maintaining power. The school's role is either social integration or social control. And it all traces back to our key thinkers, Durkheim, who saw cooperation, and Marx, who saw conflict. Now, neither theory tells the whole story on its own, but together they give us a much richer, more complete picture.
So, after exploring these huge, competing ideas, what does this all mean for someone who's actually in the classroom? What's the practical takeaway for an educator? Let's talk about the implications. Here are 4 really important takeaways. First, just be aware of this dual nature of education. Know that schools can build bridges, but they can also put up walls. Second, commit yourself to inclusive teaching, to making sure every single student gets a fair shot. Third, don't just teach the facts, teach kids how to think critically so they can question the world around them. And finally, learn to balance these 2 big roles. Be someone who passes on our shared culture, but also be someone who bravely challenges injustice.
Ultimately, the big takeaway is this. Schools are not just one thing or the other. They are incredibly complex places where both of these forces, harmony and struggle, unity and division, are at play every single day. The best, most effective educators are the ones who get that complexity and learn how to navigate it with real care and purpose. And so we'll end with this question for you to really reflect on. In your classroom, in your school, how are you going to balance these 2 things? How will you build a cooperative, supportive community while also confronting the inequalities and fighting for a more just world for every single one of your students? That right there, that is the challenge and also the incredible opportunity of being an educator. Thanks so much for joining me.